Hey guys, it's Mike at Narxoleptic Customs podcast episode 29. Today, I hope you're ready. We are sitting down with Mr. Mike Lough of Mike Lough Racing Engines, Mr. I build engines for Derek Kelly, Mr. I build engines for about every fast vehicle in existence right now. There is a ton of vehicles with his name across the back, a ton of winner circles that he has been a part of. I am pumped for you guys to hear this. We're going to tell a little bit of his background. We're going to tell a little bit about what's going on with MLRE right now, and we're going to tell what the future holds for those guys, for him and the whole team there. So get buckled up, get you a beer. Let's get to it. All right, guys, I hope you are as excited as I am. We have Mr. Mike Lough right here in front of us in the office. We are going to go over a ton of super cool stuff today. I kind of gave him a little bit of an intro into kind of some of the cars you've been a part of and how you build some of the fastest engines on the planet and do it all right there out of the middle of the country. So I really talked you up in the intro, so don't let that go to your head. Sound good?
Yeah, this makes me nervous. Didn't go to my head.
Yeah, right. So let's right out of the gate. I want to know, like, what's the horsepower of the top, like, two or three engines that you've built out of that place?
Oh, we did one Top Sportsman, Brodix aluminum block, big block. I mean, it's probably not the top horsepower, but it was around 1800 with nitrous on it.
Man, that's awesome.
We've done a ton of LSs that make, I mean, 1800, 2200.
Golly.
And I mean, I had one customer in Texas that I think he made like 2240 at the tire, and he said it had more to go, but he quit.
Jeez. He said
So
that was fast enough.
yeah, it's a grudge racer, so I can't advertise that one, but
Oh, yeah.
it's pretty nasty. It was a 434 Dart LS Next build.
Whew. That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I was like that amazes me,
Yeah,
it's solid
right.
forward build, but
That's so what's one of the strangest engines you've ever put together?
oh, I've done a lot of strange engines. I've done flathead Ford. I've done, I kind of had like a bucket list of engines when I was a kid of things I would like to build this engine because it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, flathead Ford's like a tractor engine. It wasn't near as cool as I thought it would be. I've done 426 Hemis, side oiler Ford like 427s,
Oh, wow.
396 big blocks. I mean, almost every kind of engine you could imagine. I've done at least one, but
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool. I figured, like, as long as you've been doing this, like, you've come across some really neat stuff. So,
yeah, we've come across some things. Did a 49 Cadillac for a restoration shop one time, and it had sat
wow.
outside with no carburetor on it for like 30 years. It
Oh
was
my God.
horrible to build, but
How do you break something like that loose? Just a bigger bar?
they actually, this was crazy. They actually took the engine out of the car and couldn't get it to break loose. So when we went to get the engine from the shop, the crankshaft was sticking out and it was connected to the torque converter and everything. They took the engine out around the crankshaft because they couldn't get it to turn over.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it ended up being a bad block. It was just a pile of junk, but that was pretty crazy.
Right. The numbers matching group there. They're like,
Yeah.
what came in it? That's fun.
Well, and I figured out I didn't figure it out. We figured out along those lines. He found a 50 Cadillac. He said, well, we'll just use the parts off of it. Well, they're different. And a 51 Cadillac is different. So 49, 50, and 51 are all three different engines.
See,
So,
that was the heyday of car building right there.
yep, they were always
It
trying to,
every year.
yep.
That's awesome. Well, let's go way back. Let's talk about you as a kid. Well, I don't know how way back you would go if we're talking about an 11-year-old. I don't know how old you are, but
Seven.
yeah. So what about like what's 11-year-old Mike like? Is he
Well,
already a car guy?
yeah, I was always into cars. I've actually got a picture in my bedroom on my dresser of me at probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years old, sitting in a sprint car that my dad built an engine for.
Oh man.
And that's one of my first memories in life is I remember sitting in that car and I remember pushing the button and it started on the trailer. And I remember my mom came running out, and I just, for some reason, I remember that. And
Yep.
but I've got a
That-
picture of me sitting in that car. My dad built engines, racing engines, from before the time I was even born. So
oh, that's cool.
I pretty much was into that from day one. 11 years old, I was taking my bicycle apart, trying to figure out, changing wheels, changing sprockets, trying to do different things. I didn't like where this bar was, so I got a hacksaw cutting it off. I'm gonna try to JB weld another bar on somewhere or something. It was
That's
just
awesome.
always messing with stuff, tearing the lawnmower apart, you know,
So
stuff like that.
was there a like I don't know your dad's name, but like was there a senior Lough Racing Engines?
Yeah. His name's Steve. He had a shop called Lough Automotive.
Oh, cool.
Kid. And, I grew up around all the dirt track racers, all the drag racers. When I was about 14, I started working in his shop, and I pretty much just, picked up cigarette butts out of the driveway and, just
Yep.
started at the very bottom and
Yep.
took out the trash, burned trash, pressed pistons off rods, that kind of stuff, clean parts.
Mm-hmm.
Just he started me just getting my hands dirty. You'll figure out these things as you go. Just start here. And then
That's pretty cool.
And then it progressed into, well, we're going to put you back here on this crankshaft grinder. And, he set me up, he set the crankshafts up, and all I had to do was turn the wheel. But it taught me how to read mics, taught me how to pay closer attention to things, because crankshaft grinder could kill you.
Oh, really?
If you get into it and the wheel hits the edge, a counterweight or something, it'll break.
Ooh.
So, I mean,
Yeah, pretty serious stuff.
yeah. So, and I was hooked. I was hooked on the sound, the smell, the everything you could imagine, just to see those cars run on Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and,
And the stuff guys do all week to make that happen.
yes.
Yeah. Now we're going to get into some of the stories here in a little bit, but I mean, there's several stories of how people will call you at 11 o'clock at night. Oh my gosh, I got to have this ready by the weekend. And they'll bomb to your place from wherever and you make it happen and they end up racing, So
I try. I try my best for everybody. I mean, I know some people get mad because it takes too long, sometimes, and I try to do the best for everybody. I don't want to rush anything, because rushing leads to frustration. Frustration leads to mistakes, and I've made plenty. I promise you, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I just try my best to make them right. There's times where it would have been cheaper when a customer walked in the door if I'd have just handed them $3,000 and said, "Get out."
Here you go. Thanks. Go somewhere else.
Right. I mean, but I appreciate every single one of them. The good ones, the bad ones, all of them.
That's awesome.
The good ones have elevated me to where I'm at now. The bad ones have motivated me to keep me going, 'cause I'm not going to let them see me quit.
Yep. That's pretty awesome. So being around stuff like that, like what did you learn to drive in? I mean, like if your dad had cool stuff, there's cool stuff around. I mean, like.
Well, the very first car I ever drove, my grandpa's truck was the first vehicle I ever drove, and I just drove it through the field. But the first car I ever drove was a guy that worked for my dad, had a 69 Camaro DZ 302 4-speed car, Z28.
Wow.
I was supposed to go down to the post office and get the mail, and this town was like 150 people. I mean, there was, no traffic at all. And he said, "Keys are in the car, take my car." And I couldn't figure out how to shift it, so I just drove down there in low gear,
Oh my God, that's funny.
But then I finally figured out on the way back how to get it, in the next gear. But when I was 15, my dad said, we're going to get you a car and start getting it ready. So your choices are this. I found a 64 GTO, 389. He built the motor in that car, and he said, I can pick it up for a good price. 55 Chevy. It was a hard top. It's got a 283 4-speed. He said, I built the motor in that. You can get that. Or 79 Firebird, with a blown up 301 Pontiac and a burn up metric transmission, and the car hit a bridge, so it's wrecked. Well, like a dumbass, I took that car
Oh,
because, you know, at the time that was 1988. Smokey and the Bandit, coolest movie, Trans Am. You know, I wanted that car, and so I got that one, and we just stripped the drivetrain out, and my first engine was a 421 small block, solid flat tappet cam. Realistically, probably 550 horsepower. I mean, it wasn't, you know.
that's awesome.
For a 16-year-old kid.
That's a bunch. That's double what anybody else in high school had.
Yeah, it had a you know, 3500 converter, stall converter, turbo 400, 390 gear. The car was pretty stupid, you know. It was fun.
Burnouts and donuts and
For days. Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
And before it had 390s, it had the factory 241 gears in it, and I'm scared to say my best friend in high school, he could attest. We aired it out on the interstate a couple times, and it was pretty stupid.
That's awesome.
If I knew they went that fast now.
Right. Yeah, times are different.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So I think that pretty much that answers like first car and first job question I got. But the next one I have here is we need to correct something that Derek Kelly said in his podcast. He said you've had like 158 cars or something like that, but
yeah,
he messaged me and was like, it hadn't been that many. So give us kind of a count.
On the podcast. I was going to text him right there, but I've had probably 80 cars.
I mean, that's still a bunch.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote them all down one time because people were doing this Facebook thing. It was like, your 10 cars that you've owned. And I'm like, 10, hell. I started writing it all down, and I was like, man, had quite a few cars, and I know there's some I'm forgetting. But
that's awesome.
I've had tons of square body trucks. I've had tons of G bodies. I've owned one Ford product, and it was an 88 Mustang GT, and it was a pile of junk.
You mean you didn't put a LS in it?
No, not at the time. There was no LS then.
Well, hey, those cars were pretty quick. You know, back in the day. Yep. I got mine handed to me a few times by Aaron Mick, a buddy that works at Comp Cams now, by his little notchback. Yeah. He'll be on in the next couple of days too. So I'm excited about it. Him and I give each other a ton of shit all the time. So now you're in Oak Ridge, Missouri, which tell everybody kind of where that is, like in relation to like St. Louis and Bly Vegas, Arkansas.
Bly Vegas. I'm 90 miles south of downtown St. Louis.
Oh, cool.
We, if you know where Cape Girardeau is, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, we're about 12, 15 miles from Cape.
Oh, that's awesome.
We're kind of just, my shop is in a subdivision where my house is.
Yeah.
It never intended to be what it is now. It was, you know, I built a shop to pretty much put my race car in, and the machining equipment that we had at the time was to just build our own stuff and stuff for buddies, you know. And it just turned into.
You kept getting more buddies.
Yep. We were going fast and making waves everywhere we went with stuff, so it just kept growing and growing. And
it's amazing, isn't it? You
it
do
is.
Work and people come after you. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, and but yeah, a lot of people that drive here, the GPS brings them the back way, which comes across a low water bridge and through the woods. It's paved road, but they're like, "Oh my God, you're in the middle of nowhere, man!" It's like, no, it's not that bad.
And then they drive out the front. Yeah, that's funny. So before you were full time, what else did you do? Because you haven't always been full time at that, is what Derek was saying.
I worked. When I graduated high school, I went to Universal Technical Institute in Houston for 9 months, got my diploma there. That was a waste of time. And no offense to them. I just, you know, I shouldn't say a waste of time. I knew by going to that school, I didn't want to work on cars for a living. You know, I didn't want to do, you know, at that time we were still rebuilding carburetors, you know, air conditioning, that kind of stuff. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to build race car engines. And I knew that pretty much going in, but I did what I did. It was okay. Then when I got back, I didn't want to work at a dealership, and my dad and my mom had just got a divorce, and he had moved off to work at another race engine shop down in Arkansas, actually, down at
Cool.
Jonesboro. And
Yeah.
so he down at Hogan's, and so
Yep.
he worked down there for a little while, and then I started working at Dana Corporation, working in the light axle division. It was a factory job, but we got to work on, cool stuff on rear ends. We actually made all the gears and the carriers and the cases and
Oh, that's cool.
shipped them to the assembler. But anyway, did that for 5 years, and I raced at the time. I had my own little shop, and I built my own stuff and raced locally, Sykeston, drag strip, Dyersburg, it was pretty hot.
Been there, yep.
Yeah, raced a lot there at those two tracks. Did a lot of little, Mexico racing. There was a good place in
So you're in the right part of the country for that. Roads are flat and straight.
Yes. And where everybody raced was all concrete in an industrial park. It was a dead end road. Nobody bothered us. We just didn't abuse it. You get in there, you race your stuff, you get out. But and I worked at Dana for 5 years, and the Procter and Gamble paper plant out here is it's probably the best factory job between St. Louis, Memphis. People that actually, like my wife works there. That's where I met her. We hired in at the same time, and but she works with people.
You laid the flirt down, and she's like, "I like this dude."
She couldn't resist my charms, but yeah. Well, anyway, but I worked there for 21 years.
Dang.
I was still racing, and I was still building engines, machining. I was edging more towards full-time in the shop. And finally I got to the point where I was doing 2 full-time jobs, and I burned all my vacation to work in the shop. And
Wow.
it just I guess in 2018 I finally quit out there. You can retire at 55 from that place. Well, I was 45 when I quit, so I wasn't going to work there another 10 years. I couldn't keep burning those candles at both ends.
Yep.
And my wife, I was out there so we could have insurance, and she's still out there, so she carries the insurance now, and it allows me to do what I do now.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's my top priority is, taking care of my family, and I wasn't going to leave because of the insurance, but she can carry it. So she said,
so hang on, if I'm doing the math here, y'all been together a minute, like 23 or 4 years?
Something like that. 1999, 21 years. Yeah.
Dang, that's awesome, man.
Yep.
That's awesome. Any kids?
2 kids. I've got a stepdaughter. Her name is Brooke. She's 28, or she'll be 28 next month. And I've been, part of her life since she was about 5.
Yeah.
And then Madison is our youngest. She's 17. She'll be 18 in January. She's a senior this year.
Dang.
But yeah,
that's awesome. So, yeah. So let me ask you this. So I have 2 girls, 10 and 7. And about 3 years ago, we were like, should we try for a boy? And I said, the problem with having 2 girls is that if you have another girl, then you have 3 girls and a wife. Yeah. So yeah, shop at the house is pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah. But I wouldn't, I love these girls. I wouldn't trade them for anything. I mean, I'm actually, when I die, it's the end of the line. If I didn't have a son, the name ends. I mean, I'm the last one.
Yep. So there's 2 Narx boys after myself and Steven. So we're like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
One more generation.
Well, I told my grandpa before he passed away 8 or 9 years ago, I said, I'm sorry, we didn't have a boy. And I said, the name ends with me. And he said, you know what? That just might not be such a bad thing. That makes me feel better, I think.
Yeah. Was that a compliment? I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever.
But that's funny. Well, before we dig into the shop and kind of how that, plays out, where can people find you? Like, let's give them website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I mean, everything you got.
Yeah. Facebook's probably the easiest and most popular way. My business page is self-explanatory. It's Mike Lough Racing Engines. I've got Instagram, it's at Lough Engines. I just, I don't, I'm not that good on Instagram.
Yep.
A lot of my buddies that have Instagram pages like, man, you need to post on Instagram. My pictures get 400 likes on Instagram where they only get like 12 likes on Facebook. And I'm,
Yep.
man, I don't know. I like Facebook.
We're going to talk about social media too, because
Yeah. And
you want to talk about
YouTube.
that. So.
I have a YouTube, I guess, channel, but it's just a few old dyno videos when I had my chassis dyno over here. And they're just, like I said, when we talked earlier, my GoPro was mounted up so, I could video. And most of the videos are me just like looking at the camera like, how does this thing work? What?
Yeah, is it on?
Yeah, it's 3 minutes of me standing there talking to somebody, and then I cut it off before the run starts,
Yep. There's been so many videos I've recorded that are opposite. Like I think I'm turning it on, and then I turn it off. But when I turn it on, it'd be like 8 minutes. I'm like, what did I record for 8 minutes? It's just me and Steven standing around talking. I'm like,
yeah,
crap.
Yeah, it's like having your phone on in your pocket,
Yeah, right. So you have apparel. You got shirts or a t-shirt. Yep. So I'm going to order that here in just a few minutes. I'm excited about that. But what's probably the easiest way to get you? The shop phone, email? How do you, if a new person is hearing this and they're like, I want you to build my engine, how should they go about getting a hold of you?
My number one, there's all kinds of communication these days. My number one way I like to communicate is through my business page, through the messenger on my business page. That way we can carry on a conversation and I can keep tabs of what we talked about. I get a ton of PMs through my personal page. I get text on my cell phone. I get, emails. I've got 2 email accounts, so I get emails on both. Now my website, MikeLoughRacingEngines.com, where you can order that T-shirt, it's got a messaging page and people are sending messages on there. And I've got a good friend of mine, Daryl Whitlow, that helps me with that. And he'll say, hey, did you see this message? And I'm like, hell no, I don't even know.
What does it say?
Yeah,
awesome.
I didn't even know I got a message on there. So my business page is the best way to do it.
Okay, good. Everybody, you hear that? If you're new to the MLRE family, go through the Facebook page. Messenger is probably the best. So obviously it was part-time for you to start out with. So you were doing it, you said, for buddies and stuff. We have Narxoleptic as a part-time, like it's about 2 nights a week is what I get in the shop. What kind of schedule did you have worked out? Because like if I get, so like after this, I'll go work with my buddy Brian Lade at Black Seed Originals. We're doing a fuel injection install on a 57 Chevrolet, and he's doing the interior. So, now I've got Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night in the shop. So like, was there a certain schedule you worked in the shop?
No, at P&G, I work swing shifts. So,
cool. Okay.
I could have told you 7 years from now, whether I'm working on a Sunday night or whatever. So we had our schedule already laid out. And
okay. So swing shift, you're on 3 or 4 days, off 3 or 4 days type setup. That's cool.
So, and if I could work my vacation. I had top seniority on my team for a while. I could work my vacation to where, like, for example, the day we would always get off on Thanksgiving. Well, our team always worked the day before Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving. That was our schedule. Well, they automatically gave us Thanksgiving off as a holiday. So I would use vacation and get that one day before, and I would have 11 days off.
Jeez.
1 day of vacation. So
that's awesome.
So I would spend most of that time working in the shop.
Yeah.
I feel like I actually worked full time in the shop, and because I put in a lot of hours and I went without a lot of sleep, because if we work nights, like we worked a Monday, Tuesday night, I would work in the shop all day Monday, then go work on the plant Monday night, sleep Tuesday, work Tuesday night, and then when I got off work Wednesday morning, I'd come back to the shop and work.
Yep.
So it was rough for a while, but then like I said, in July of 18, I went in, I brought in a business partner, which was a horrible, horrible decision, and managed to go through that for a year, and then I cut him loose and pretty much just said I'm doing it on my own, from here on out.
Yep. I think I remember that time, like that time, because it was a little bit of Facebook drama that kind of went along with that.
Oh yeah.
And all that stuff. And we're definitely not, I don't want to, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
No need.
So since then, I mean, like, and you've only gotten busier, or I've just been noticing you more, one of the two.
Oh no, it's much busier.
Yep. So, I mean, it's about processes and efficiency for you, I'm sure, on your end.
Yes.
One question I do have here before we roll through kind of some of the other stuff is in the early days, was there like an engine that you were known for? Like, oh man, you're building a small block, take it over to Mike.
Yep.
Like,
yeah. Well, my dad, I don't know, there may not be any controversy surrounding this, but as far as I know, my dad invented the 421 small block Chevy. And I know there's going to be people out there going, oh my God, bull crap. But in the 70s, he figured out that if he offset ground a 400 crank, used a small journal, 327 or 283 rod, Pontiac piston, and did did some machine work to it, it would make it made like 419 cubic inches. And everybody was calling it 421. Well, then they, like in the late 80s, early 90s, companies started making those rotating assemblies, because you couldn't buy that stuff then. And
it was before the internet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And, I mean, you just couldn't buy those parts. And so anyway, I had 421s in pretty much all my stuff. I built them for buddies. One of my buddies has a 72 Chevy pickup with a 421 in it that I built in 1995.
Wow.
And it's still going, and he runs the crap out of that thing. But I mean, he takes good care of it, but I mean, that thing's still going.
That's awesome.
We've got one in here now that's getting ready to go out probably tomorrow. We just finished it up running on the stand, and it was one that the first crankshaft I ever ground at my dad's shop. It's that engine.
Wow.
It was built in like 87, 88, somewhere in there. Wow. And it just came in for a freshman. And the same guy has had it this whole time, and he gave it to his son to put in his truck, his 78, 79 Chevy pickup. And he wanted to bring it in. I converted it from a flat tappet cam to a roller cam, hydraulic roller, and bumped it up a little bit like that. But that was awesome just to see that.
That's really cool. I mean, dude, that motor's been around.
Yeah. It's
30-something years. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. But that was what we were kind of known for, was the 421. We built, and we actually, when we first started here at this shop in 05, me and my dad built this shop, and we were doing a lot of big block Fords. There was a lot of mud racing going on at that time, pull trucks. We were doing big block Fords, small block Fords. And we still did a lot of small block Chevrolets, and small block Chryslers, big block Chryslers. I mean, we were doing, at that time, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to be available for anyone. And but as time progressed, I built an LS engine for myself, for my own race car. And that was in I want to say 07. And that engine actually just came in for refreshing. That's the first time it's been,
wow.
I sold it to a guy, and it's a big engine in a stock block. And it run 630s on motor in the 8th, 990s quarter on pump gas.
That's awesome.
Years. And but anyway, that kind of started the LS thing. People saw how that car ran, so they started bringing LS stuff. And then we started doing some turbo stuff, and we were one of the first. Well, Kurt Urban was the first guy to ever go fours in the 8th with a stock block of any kind, stock LS part. We were the first stock block at the time. We claimed we were the first stock block in the fours on radials. Now everybody's got a record. It's like stock block
on a Tuesday,
wipers, purple seat covers, whatever. But but that that got a lot of attention, because that time it was a 370, and it was running 480s, 490s before anybody else was running 480s and 490s.
Dang, that's awesome.
And so that I learned a lot on that particular setup, and that's where we really got rolling with the turbo stuff. And it's just
That's
kind
awesome.
of narrowed down a little bit more every year. We just narrow down a little bit more into what we're doing. And
So I'm doing the math here. Did you work both jobs for 15 years?
yes,
Holy, because you said '05 and that, dang, that's crazy. Because like what I wish I worked on a swing shift almost, because it would be nice to have a couple of days off. Because like Steven, he was overnights for a month and then days for a month. He could get so much stuff done because he wouldn't sleep. He was like you, and I need my sleep. You don't look this pretty by not getting sleep. So, but we spend 20 hours a week maybe. I can't imagine, because I mean at that point, if you have 3 days off and you spend 10 hours, I mean you're working 80 hours a week every week. And no days off. It's not like you're like, okay, well, it's Saturday and Sunday, I'm just going to chill. Nope. It's like, I'm going to go do this. That's wild.
I could say this now because I don't work there anymore, but I spent a lot of my time, not a lot of my time, I spent some of my time at the plant. The people that I work with that are going to watch this are going to be like, yeah, we know. But that was when I would answer all my messages and, respond, to people, because I could, my job was not, I had some seat time, so I could, and I could do those things. Now I got my ass chewed plenty of times by managers for being on my phone too much or whatever.
See how that worked out for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. Tell us, give us the conversation with the wife when you're like, listen, I don't want to work 2 jobs anymore. Like, how did that go? Dinner? I'm sure it was probably dinner time, and she probably knew it was coming because I'm sure she's tired of you working 80 hours a week too. So,
well, she also, like I said, she works out there and works swing shifts. So she worked the opposite shift I did, as far as if I was on days, she was on nights.
Oh, wow.
If I was on nights, she was on days, because that way we could take care of the kids. If there was always somebody at home.
Yep.
But being that she would be on nights and I'm on days, so the next day she would sleep. And I could come out here and work. And the conversation was pretty much me getting frustrated out there at the plant because of just constant
normal work stuff. Yep.
Yes. And, I know everybody has that stuff at their own job. And I was just like, I can make as much or more money in the shop. Even if I can't, it'll prolong my life. I can't take it anymore out there. And she said, then quit. She said, go do what you are good at doing and what you've always dreamed to do. Go do it.
That's awesome.
And she is just the best thing ever. Everybody brags about how awesome their wife is. Well, mine really is.
Yeah.
And I married way out of my league.
Definitely. It sounds like, for sure. So let me ask this. When you first, you give your notice at work, you're like, okay, bye guys, I appreciate it. Y'all come by the shop, hang out, whatever. And then that next, you're not the kind of guy that probably took 2 or 3 days off to start your new job. So what's the morning after you don't work at the plant anymore? What's that like?
Relief.
Is it
relief?
Right. You're just like, yes. So, and then how does that transition? Did you, after you were solely Mike Lough Racing Engines, do you think you worked more in the shop then than what you did before? More than what you did with both jobs?
Yes.
Wow.
The day I quit out there was July 5th, 2018. And it was, went to team meeting that morning. Nobody on my team really said anything. Nobody on the off-going team really said anything. I was like, this is the last day. I've worked with these people forever. And nobody really said anything. And I was like, okay. So we go out to the floor, and I went and told, individually told everybody that I worked with goodbye, and it's a pleasure working with you. And we talked for a little bit, and I was like, you know what? If we don't have anything else to do other than what we're doing, I'm going home. What are they going to do? Fire me?
Well, they go, yep, that's exactly right.
So I left that morning about 10:30, and I drove. I was like, I got shit to do at the shop, so I'm leaving. So
that's awesome.
I drove out here, and I came out to the shop, and my phone rang. and it was a person that I worked with on my team out there, and they said everything has come apart. The shit's hit the fan. What do we do now? What this thing's running wide open and we have no control. And I said, I don't work there anymore. And
Wow.
I hated to be like that, but it's like,
Yeah. Dang, I'm out, guys. Thanks.
I'm busy.
Yeah, right.
And we just started rolling. I mean, it was, and at that time, like I said, I had, that was when I brought the business partner in. It was exactly at that time. So it freed, the reason I brought them in was to handle invoicing, messaging, phone calls, stuff like that. So I could concentrate on machining and building.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I just put my nose to the grind and just started working. And
that's awesome.
That's what I love doing. I would do it for free if I could. I mean, but I can't.
But it's more fun to get paid for it.
Yeah, and the bank wants your money for this equipment and stuff like that.
Well, and the other side of that too is like, if someone's giving you money, you're more apt to like go that next step and just do that little bit better job because
Well, and I spend and I tell this to everybody. I know I've got a lot of people that don't like me for whatever reason. They think I did them wrong or whatever, but nobody, even the people that think I've done them wrong, they can't say I didn't try to help them.
There you go.
I spend your money like I spend my money. If, I don't buy into bullshit. I deal with reality, not theory.
Yep.
And I've been around this my entire life. I know what works. Not to say I can't learn something. I've got things to learn every day, and I learn things every day.
Mm-hmm.
But I spend your money, like if you wanted to buy, say you wanted to make 1,200 horse at the tire, but you wanted to buy an ultra billet crank. I'm going to tell you, man, that's really not worth spending that money,
Right.
And I get a lot of those calls, or I'll get somebody
they've been
that wants to make
parts shopping. Yep.
right, or I get somebody that wants to make 1,500 at the tire with a stock crank and a stock 5.3 aluminum block. I'm like, well, let me maybe help you, on this end, and we talk about it. And I like to form relationships with people.
Yeah.
It makes things easier. If something goes wrong, it just makes things a lot easier. They know they can call me. They know we can talk about it. I'm not about the blame game. If I screw up, I'm going to hold my hand up and say, you know what, I screwed up. I'm going to eat this. But at the same time, I get so many people that call and say, well, this happened and it's this. Oh, well, you've already tore it down and looked at it. No, but my buddy said it's this. Well, how do you know? Let's not start getting panic in our minds.
And I was going to say, Facebook has probably created some of that as well.
Oh yeah. Well, and before that, even it was, the forums,
Oh yeah.
on the internet.
Yep.
But now everybody's comfortable with saying what they want to say through private messaging or or on a forum on Facebook or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That they can say whatever they want and nobody has to.
Yeah, and there's no point in arguing with folks because like if you're just going to be like you're literally arguing with somebody that's on their phone, so we all get a kick out of people arguing on the internet. So
yeah, I avoid that. There are so many times that I want to just, I'll type out a response and I'm like, you know what? If people are dumb enough to listen to some of these guys, I don't want them here anyway,
Yep. That's exactly right. So one of the let's stay on that for a minute because one of the jobs that I've realized for folks kind of like in your situation, one of the hardest things is because you're the social media guy too,
Mm-hmm.
So unless you have like somebody that's dedicated to do that, which I don't know anybody that can afford to just have somebody taking pictures and posting on the internet for them, but like how do you handle that? Like if I see a post on the Facebook page, is that generally taken by you?
Not necessarily. My good friend James Sisk, he does Sisk photography. Mm-hmm. He was on me back in like 2013. He's like, you got to get a Facebook page. I was like, I ain't doing that, you know. And he was like, oh, you need to do that, man. And he goes to all these tracks and takes pictures, you know. So he was like, I'll post some pictures. So I made him an admin on my page, and he helped me get my page page started. And he's still an admin on the page, and
that's awesome.
And so a lot of pictures came from him. Most of what I do now is I share, you know, like a customer will make a post, hey, we won, you know, at this track. I'll just share it, you know.
Yep.
And I
like Derek Kelly.
I like Derek Kelly. I think everybody thinks that, you know, sometimes me and Derek have talked about it. I'm like, man, I don't even know if I want to share it because I think people are just sick of seeing it, you know. It's like, you know,
like, how many times can that son of a bitch win?
Yeah, I tease him. It's like, you know, on Forrest Gump when he said, I got to go see the president again, you know. I tease him about that. But
that's awesome.
But I get confused sometimes on what people want to see, because like I'll post a picture, and I very rarely post pictures of engines we're building, mostly because there's always somebody that's going to nitpick. It's like, oh my God, look, he's got a bolt laying on the table back there. You know, I zoomed in on it. And so, I mean, and a lot of Facebook is perception.
Yep.
You know, you can make anything look like anything you want. And, you know, you can make it look like you've got a big shop in an industrial park and stainless tables and white walls and all this stuff. And in reality, you know, it's not that.
Yep.
So I try to share posts, you know, from winning customers, and, you know, just as much as I can anyway. I don't want to dilute. Yep. That's what I tell some of my friends that, you know, they're like, why don't you post more? I'm like, because I want my posts when I make them to have some credibility. I don't want to just post every single day, you know. Everybody's like, oh, he's posting again. And they scroll right by, you know.
Yep.
But
I can understand that. One thing I will say, so I've been helping a local guy on his page, is that and it's funny because I literally am an admin on his page and post everything, right? We post like 3 times a day to Facebook. What's funny is when like I'm not in that and I'm on my own, I only see like 1 every other day of the stuff I post. I mean, like I physically post it from my phone and still physically only see like 1 post out of every 6. I'm like, so my theory on it is throw it out there. Somebody will see it.
Yeah. You know, and I get a lot of people that they'll say something about posting, and I'm like, I posted that last week. And they're like, I didn't see it, you know? Yeah. And you know, the Facebook, how they've got their algorithms and that stuff, it's, you know, but, you know, but every once in a while I'll post something and I'll see a bunch of new likes, you know, because I see who, you know, you see who likes everything. And it's like, well, it's not the same 24 people liking the post. You know? These are people who don't normally like posts. So I try to monitor that and to say, okay, well, these people want to see something new, you know, so maybe I should post more about this, or you know, something like that.
And that's probably the hardest part for us. So I am a believer in document, not create, right? So like for us, you know, we work on some customer cars, like we do fun stuff in the shop, you know. So we basically will take pictures of stuff that we're doing. That way we're documenting for the customer and for us, so we can look back in 10 years when grandkids come along, hopefully more than 10 years.
Yeah.
15, 18 years maybe. And go, you know, hey, look, this is what Pawpaw did right here. That's what I did, you know, and things like that. So that's how we view our YouTube and our social media stuff. So how many engines do you have in the shop right now?
Right now, I mean, usually there are about 40 in rotation at all times.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know, a lot of people walk in, they're like, how do you keep all this straight right here?
You're like, because I'm in it every day.
Yeah, and I mean, I know, you know, I've got a dry erase board where I keep, you know, a list of the people, and, you know, that's to kind of keep track of that. But like, I just know, you know, what crank's supposed to go in what engine, you know, and
man, that's That is why. But think of the time it would take you to keep that on an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Like you'd have to go in every time you order a part, go click, 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 and like then put it in, and then it would probably take more time to do that than it would be worth for you, because you're in it, you live it every day.
Well, I probably screw myself more often than not on, like if I forget to order something for an engine, like I'm, almost through with this engine, I'm like, I don't have any rocker arms. So where I screw myself is where I'll just overnight everything. It's like, oh, I got to have them tomorrow. Boom, I'll overnight them. So I eat a ton in overnight shipping. But that's not their problem. That's my problem.
Right. So my next question is like, how many employees do you have employees? How many? What do they do? I mean, like,
yeah, I have my buddy Wes that you just saw right before he just left. He's been with me for about a year. He's awesome. We went to UTI together.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that's where we met. He's actually from here local, but he was from another town kind of close. I mean, we played each other in football and stuff, but we didn't know each other.
Wow.
But we met down there. We shared an apartment. And when I graduated, I came back here. When he graduated, he went in the Air Force and stayed in the Air Force for 26 years.
Oh, so, wow.
When he retired, he moved back here. And he walked in one day and he's like, hey, man, I've been seeing you all over Facebook, your stuff. I just want to see how it's going. And I mean, he was a F-15 F-15 fleet mechanic leader. So he,
dang.
Tolerances
are pretty important on his end.
Pretty important. And he's just been great help. And then I recently hired a boy that's graduated from Rankin Technical College up in St. Louis. And he's been here a few weeks, and
that's cool.
Yeah, he's definitely he's doing well. It's good to have that kind of help. I mean, to clean parts, take out the trash, do those things. I mean, somebody's got to do that. And for years it was me.
And you were doing that and building engines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And answering the phones and answering messages, and it's.
Jeez.
Every minute counts out here. So
I can only imagine. So you don't, 40 hours a week in the shop and 40 hours a week on the shop, messages and phone calls and all that kind of stuff. So obviously we are, I came across your stuff from drag racing just because of kind of the stuff I follow. But, this part of the country, especially over there, dirt track stuff is big. Yes. So did you race dirt track? And then, I mean, you drag raced, but.
Yeah, I drag raced. My dad did probably more dirt track engines than he did drag race engines.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that was when dirt track was huge around here. And actually down here in your area, it was,
big time.
Roseville, Dyersburg, Walnut Ridge, Pocahontas, all those places down there. And, he had engines running at all those places. And I really wanted to dirt track when I was a kid. I wanted to race dirt late models.
Yeah.
And, man, that was my thing. And then we had Farmington up here and Peevely and some other tracks. And then Benton opened up. That was a big deal. And so I did a few dirt engines at the time, and actually did some work for some of my dad's old customers. One of my dad's old customers, his son started racing. And I remember when he was born, and he was racing. So I was doing his engines, and but I always drag raced. So, that was where I was always seen at the track. And it just kind of, like I said, I wanted to dirt race, but that's a full-time job. I got a ton of respect for all those guys, because they're putting a body on the car, what they do between the races is full maintenance on the cars, Yeah. My drag car, I just washed it and put it in the garage, and and then, I started racing nationally, and did that for a few years. Raced, at that time it was the Edelbrock Pro Series, and it was NMCA, kind of, it's NMCA now, and did okay there, learned a lot, and kind of got out there on the national stage and had a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
But
So we're doing Rocky Mountain Race Week in a couple weeks. Any events like that you think in your future? Well, let me back up. What project car do you currently have a project car of your own?
no, I have an '84 Chevy four-wheel drive square body. I totally restored. Well, a friend of mine painted it. Did the body. I built an engine for him. He did the body.
That's cool.
Another friend of mine did the wiring, and all that stuff. But I did the engine, and then another shop, they did the transmission, and I did an engine for them. It's like swapping a bunch of stuff out. But
Yeah.
that truck was what I always wanted. Growing up, was that exact truck what I've got now.
Oh, that's cool.
But at the time, now it's a fuel injected LS1 in it. They didn't have that back then, but it's an LS1. It's on 38-inch tires. It's cool.
Oh, I like it.
Fun
Yeah.
to drive. It rides great. We did that back in like 2016, and I think I've got about 1,800 miles on it. It just sits in my shop. I don't ever drive it. And I've actually got my eye on another truck right now that I want to sell this square body, and I want to buy this other one that a customer's got.
Yeah.
Of course, first thing I'm going to do is yank the motor out of it and build a motor. I did all the machine work for him on this one. It's just a 350 small block Chevy, and it runs pretty good. But I've got an LS in mind that I want to stick in it. And,
That's cool. And now, is it 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive?
No, it's 2-wheel drive.
Oh, hey.
And I may or may not get it. I don't know. Just depends.
So let me ask you this. So if you're looking at like dedicated drag cars, let's take Derek's car, right? And then let's take like a car that is maybe a little slower, but does like drag week or Rocky Mountain Race Week. What are the differences in those engines? It blows my mind that somebody can take a car like his that has, huge injectors and all that kind of stuff and then drive that thing all week,
Well, first of all, let's call Derek's car a street car, because that's what he.
Yeah. He'll drive it. I get it.
But yeah, a car that runs that well and that at the track, that's that's pretty awesome. But the differences in the engines, there's just not a lot.
Wow.
I'm actually doing an engine for a car right now for the Rocky Mountain deal.
Sweet.
And it's just it's very similar in its build, the way Derek's engine is, or a lot of the other ones that I've got out there that they're hydraulic roller. Pretty much I apply all the same principles to every engine, whether like if you've got an '09 Chevy truck that dropped a DOD lifter and you want a stock rebuild, I do pay the same attention to that thing as I do to Derek's motors.
That's cool.
But the difference is pretty much just what level do you want your engine to be? I'm going to use, I'm going to push the dart blocks because I like those blocks. I work with them a lot. I got some of the two of the first SHPs that ever came out when they
Oh, wow.
rolled them out. They were serial numbers 15 and 16, and they
That's
scrapped
awesome.
the first 10. So we got in on that. But I like those blocks, the SHP Pros, and the LS Next even. That's a great block. I love that. But I just shipped an LSX out this week. I've got an LSX I'm building right now. We do a lot of stock block stuff. All it depends on is basically what level you want to run at and what your budget is.
Yep.
I can pretty much work anything within a realistic budget, and make it work.
What is, like, if somebody calls and like, what is something on like the goal list that you feel like people need to have figured out ahead of time? You know, like they're like, hey, I want to make X power or run X amount of time, or like, is budget more important, or is kind of having, so I'll just tell you the story. So the old truck that I have, it's a 210,000 mile 4.8, 78 millimeter turbo cam, all that kind of stuff, right? So our goal with it was 600 wheel, rolling burnouts, and take my kids to get ice cream. Mm-hmm. So it does 2 of the 3 anytime we want. So we're at like 500 wheel right now. And so we've got a few upgrades. I'm going to put another pump in it and probably go E just to make it live better because it's available right down the street. So we were nervous to run that in the anyways. But that was my goal for like 4 years of gathering parts. So when I called Mick, I was like, hey man, this is the, I want a converter that's going to work with this cam. I want, the old truck weighs this, this is what I'm going to do for suspension, things like that. If you were going to give somebody a tip on what to put together before they call you and say, hey, I want to make 1,500 horsepower and run 460s, like what's some information they need to have written down?
They need, well, the first thing they need to do is find this call. They need to just, first of all, they need to be realistic with their budget. I mean, I can work with almost anything, but I get calls that people say, hey, I want to make 1,300 at the tire with a stock bottom end 6-liter. Not going to happen. I'm not even going to try it. Well, I saw it. Some guy on YouTube did a video where they made 1,300 at the tire, or 1,300 horsepower with his 6.0, and they kept pulling on it till it blew up, and they made, it's like, okay, I'm not going to put my name on that because,
right.
Everything matters.
Yeah, and they did it with a $400 turbo.
Right.
Yeah, they may have done it once. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'll say, let me recommend that we do at least pistons, rods. I'm going to get you lined up in order of what would be the weakest points to address first.
Yep.
I've actually got a guy that I did a 388 Dart short block for, and we put 243 heads on it because that's what he had. But I said, you can, that was, and at the time that was what he had. So I said, that's not going to hurt. You're just going to be limited by that. So next in line, when you're ready to go do a set of 6 bolt heads, you've already got the block, you've already got the short block, everything's already done. All you got to do is put the heads on it.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
And I do that a lot. I try to, help them prioritize. These are the things that I would recommend you replace first. If you're going to stick with stock bottom end, I get a lot of guys that want to do stock block, 1/2-inch head studs. They want to do custom age main studs. They want to do everything to this stock block. I'm like, okay, we can do that, but let me tell you about this about a dart block and figure you up something on there. And every time I figure it out, they go, well, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I figured it was going to be $5,000 different. No, it's not near that much.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say things are pretty. The good thing about so much competition and parts availability in the LS world is that, well, really everything anymore, but is people don't have gigantic margins on stuff because they can't, because they're all competing. There's 5 different block manufacturers, and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, it's also shops fighting other shops. You've got, a shop over so-and-so's, working out of his, garage at his house or his living room, with a laptop, and he's cutting everybody's throats on prices. Well, that sucks because part of how I make a living is selling parts. Yeah. And I don't feel like I know I'm competitive on pricing, and that just, I mean, and it's a fine line to, do you accept parts that somebody bought somewhere else, or, do you just sell them parts? I mean, like, you don't walk into Outback and take your own steak. You buy it there, you eat it there. They cook it there. Yep. That's how they do it.
Yeah, you don't generally bring your own steak. Yep. So I think the phone calls in the background and the messages are telling us what this next question is. But like, what's it like to be Mike Lough right now? I mean, like, my question is, did you ever think you would be on TV
Never.
building engines? Because like you're going to be on Motorhead Garage, right?
Yeah. I've already been on. They showed the first episode last Sunday.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
They've got a few more. They've got some other times that they're going to air the same program. And yeah, I was on there, talked about oiling mods on blocks that we come up with and things like that. And basically kind of what we talked about. When is a good time to step into a better setup like a dart block, you know, or aftermarket heads like Brodix heads or, you know, something like that. And
That's cool.
So that's, you know, yeah, I didn't ever think I would be on TV. Never thought anybody would ever want to do a podcast. You know, it's like, it's humbling. I'm blessed beyond anything I could ever imagine.
That's awesome.
And we're very busy. And
that's always a good thing.
My phone's automatically set to go to do not disturb when I walk out of the shop. So,
oh, that's cool.
And I hate to do that. You know, I like to be available, you know.
But
I mean, I get calls at 10 o'clock at night, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, the thing is, like, at some point you do have to like go, okay, I'm going to have a regular life for a minute and go to dinner with my family.
Mm-hmm. And
it's awesome.
You know, driving down the road with my wife, you know, the phone will ring and she'll just look at me like, you know.
You're like, 2 minutes.
Yeah. And it's never
It's not going to be 2 minutes. It's going to be 22 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're in the truck talking, she's inside eating, you know. But yeah, I've lived that before.
She's used to it, and I hate putting her and my, you know, my family through that a lot, you know. But I mean, I want to keep, and the word customer to me is kind of impersonal, you know. Client is even more impersonal than that, I think. But I like to let people know that I'm, you know, that's why I'm here. I'm going to be, you know, keep me in the loop, talk to me, you know, ask me questions, you know, whatever, you know, give me feedback.
Tell me stuff. Let's get a plan. So with all of the parts that you offer and all the different companies, and people can find that on the website, they can go in and look. Could somebody call you and I hate to just call it a crate setup, but like go, hey, build this, you know, like
I get more calls. And it's when I told Derek, I said, we need to start scheduling when you make a post, because when you make a post, I get 50 phone calls. I want what Derek Kelly has. And I've actually got it in my computer, my QuickBooks system, as a Derek Kelly engine. So it makes it easier for me to quote, you know, and Derek's just great. I mean, you know, we're friends. And you heard the story, you know, from him about how, you know, we got hooked up on all this stuff. And, but, you know, I kind of, we kind of experiment a little bit with Derek's stuff sometimes and, you know, like, let's see if this works. And sometimes
and then it does. And it's like, his stuff, he's living right or something. I don't know. I can't figure it out because like his stuff just works and it works all the time. Maybe it's just the engine builder. I don't know, but I'm just saying.
I definitely like receiving some of the credit, but I definitely can't take, you know, everybody thinks, and this has been a fight from years, decades, is it's either if everything's going great, the engine's awesome. If anything's going wrong, it's the engine builder's fault. And I know tuners fight the same fight, but
I can't even imagine.
It's
so
like
I've got
I broke the ring opinion. It's the engine builder's fault, you know. It's
dang. Tuner put too much boost in it. So I meet with I'm hopefully taking the cart down to JP's place on Sunday morning. So I'm tuned by JP. So I'm excited to have him on and get a tuner aspect of some stuff. But here's what I want to do. So my kids will be home in a minute. So you heard them earlier. So here's what I want to get kind of technical for just a second and maybe lose some folks. because it's important for me to understand. Okay, so help me understand how lobe separation affects like a naturally aspirated, a boost, and like a nitrous setup.
Well, it's like which I know Aaron, he can educate you pretty good on
Yeah, I've got one from him too. So for you,
the the lobe separation and the duration numbers, those are just numbers that come out as they fall out where they fall out. The numbers that people who spec cams need to pay attention to, and they do, the ones that really know how to do it, they go by valve train events. Um, intake opening, intake closing, exhaust opening, exhaust closing. Those are the numbers you're looking for, and you want to know what that relationship has with what you're doing. And when you get those events correct, the other numbers fall out where they may. And usually it's, they fall within a window, like nitrous cams fall out in one window, NA cams fall out in another window. So the lobe separations, commonly on NA stuff, like if it's carbureted, used to be 106, 108, dirt track stuff was always tight. You get a lot of overlap, and you get, those are the numbers that you want to concentrate on. You just gotta, the education on camshafts comes from knowing where those events fall.
and those events fall. You're literally teaching me this. Okay, so like, not like I understand what you're saying, but so, and that'll come from like the cam lobe design, or like, okay.
Well, the lobe separation is where the lobes are placed, in relation to each other. And what that lobe separation comes out to is where they're spaced. And the reason you do that is to control your valve timing events. And so the math just happens to work out, to where you see the numbers on the cam card.
Okay, that makes sense.
But, and there are places, that just, that's what they do. And,
Yeah.
and they relay the information to people in the numbers that they can understand, which are, your duration at 50 and your lobe separation. So you got, you've got, say, Little John, he does, that's what he does. BTR, Brian Tooley, they know their stuff. All these guys, that's what they do. Cam manufacturers, comp cams, cam motion, those cam manufacturers, they know their stuff because they're the ones, grinding the cam.
Yep. Aaron's trying to get me to talk with Billy at Comp 2, so I'm hoping that, because we'll go deep technical with that guy, because it's like that's normal stuff for him.
Yeah, I'm just an idiot. Billy's, all those guys that work there, just, that's what they do. That's what they know. And I'm not afraid to call one of those guys, or call, John Bewley or one of those guys, and say, hey, this is what we've got. Help me with this,
Help me make it right. So
Yeah.
If you're building a boost, is what I always like turbo stuff, so I'm always going to err towards that. So are you a less compression, more boost, or more compression, less boost kind of guy?
I am, I guess, typically known as a less compression, more boost, but I just actually talked with a customer about this today. He was wanting to put like 12.5 to 1 in his engine. And I was like, hold on.
Wowzers.
Yeah. And he's like, well, it'll spool the turbo faster. I won't need as much boost. And I'm like, that is true, but you're narrowing your tuning window down to this. It's not, you've got zero room for error.
Yeah, something goes wrong at that level.
Yeah, and and it doesn't have to be a tuning error. It could be an injector, or it could be a fuel pressure issue. One little hiccup, and the whole thing's gone.
So I'm understanding, like a little bit less compression and a little more boost gives you a little wider window of maybe some, not mistakes, but
Safety.
Yeah.
and you're not leaving anything on the table really. That's the part people hear safety, and they hear, well, I'm leaving all kinds of power on the table. That's not true.
There's more left in it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, we talked about Derek earlier and how pretty much not how simple his combination is, and it works. I've actually lost people because they want to know, what will you build me what Derek has? Absolutely. Here's what it is. Oh, it can't be that. There's no way it's that simple. Well, it is.
Yep.
And I'll build them all day long like that. And
that's awesome.
And we build a lot of engines, all over the country, all over the world, for people.
So here's what I did notice when I was at his shop, and I haven't released the video for that one yet, but there's another motor in the back that he said is a little different than the motor he's got in now.
Mm-hmm.
He said it's going to be a little nastier.
It's a little nastier.
That's kind of exciting. Him and I are going to do Derek Kelly podcast 2.0, I think at the end of the season, and kind of go over some of the stuff. I'd like to hear some more race stories from him for sure.
Oh yeah.
So, we talked about Aaron a little bit. And so I text him, I'm like, dude, I need a question that is going to be technical enough that Mike can answer for us, and it'll teach some people stuff. So here's what he said. He suggested that I ask how rating horsepower per cubic inch is a poor way to figure efficiency. He says that horsepower per CFM of airflow is the real way to judge an engine build.
That's right. Yeah, I actually just talked to a customer about that today. He was wanting to price a big block, and he's got a 565, and he said, I know this 565 is not going to do it. He said, but I'd like to make 1,200 horsepower at the flywheel. And he said, what do we need to do here? I said, well, a 565 could do that, but you're going to have to squeeze that thing. I'm talking, you're going to spend a ton more money trying to make that thing do that, as if you just built something, bigger. And it's still all about efficiency. NA horsepower is the hardest horsepower to get.
Well, yeah. You can't just turn the boost controller up just a little bit, get that one more pound in there.
Well, and you got to, that's why the pro stock cars, that run NHRA are so expensive, because those guys are like just crazy, with finding power, and I'll say, building boost engines is, I love it. We can make big horsepower. I just try to build reliability.
Well, and one of the things that Aaron and I were talking about one night was with boost, your valve, all the geometry that goes along with that doesn't have to be as wild. Like, right. A ton of guys are like, I want to make 600 horsepower NA. I'm like, dude, get a regular cam, drive it like it's a truck, and put a turbo on it and make 600.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I've taken up a ton of your time. We've talked like an hour and 20 minutes here. So I know you're a busy guy. So I want to ask four questions that I ask everybody, and it'll be interesting to see your questions on this. So, not just in racing, but in everything. What's the fastest you've ever driven mile per hour wise?
I've been, well, okay. I had this car was a piece of shit. It was a 73 Plymouth Satellite that two of my best friends in school had. And that car, it had 155 mile an hour speedometer in it. And one night, me and my buddy that I told you has the 72 truck with the 420, we had it buried one night. And
dang.
And I shouldn't even be telling that. I'll probably get arrested. But
statute of limitations. I think you're good.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Fastest I've been in a race car, my own race car, was about 160. 100 and a quarter.
That's fast.
It was very fast.
That's
in that junk I was driving.
I was gonna say that's probably a faster feel, certainly, than going 160 in a satellite. You know what I mean? Because you're like stopped and there in seconds, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I only did that one time. Usually my car would trap about 137, and that was running on motor. And then
Dang.
I put a nitrous shot on it one time, just wanted to see what it would do. And hit it with 200, and it was spinning, and I got it into high gear, and it just rolled out. And
That's
that
awesome.
was fun, but that was
So,
too scary in that car.
so if you are tearing apart an old engine and it's been sitting outside, like you said, the Cadillac motor from earlier, are you, and you got these 2 cans of product on the counter, are you a WD-40 or PB Blaster kind of guy?
WD-40.
Yeah?
Yep.
I will say you're in the minority.
I
A lot of
can't
folks
stand the
have,
smell of PB Blaster.
do what?
I can't stand the smell of PB Blaster.
Yep, that's what everybody that has gone the other direction will say. I talked to a guy named Dustin Self who does like a bunch of custom frame stuff, but he uses a chemical called Hills compounders, Hills manufacture, something like that. But he said it's amazing. So I'm trying to work with those guys, see if I can get somebody on the podcast from it. But it's like WD-40 times 10. He says it smells good, doesn't have the PB Blaster smell, but is as good as that. So that's kind of neat. When you're working on engines, are you a gloves or bare hands kind of guy?
Bare hands.
Got to be able to feel it.
Yeah, I've always used my bare hands. I got a friend of mine that he says he's amazed. He's like, you can tear down the nastiest engine in the world in a white tuxedo and not get anything on it. It's just from years of getting dirty and learning how to not get dirty, I guess.
Yep.
I've always got a towel, like a paper towel in my pocket, and I'm always wiping my hands off.
Yep.
And it drives me crazy to have dirty hands.
That's why, and to be in the industry you're in, and that drives you nuts.
Touching things that I get people that come in here and they'll see a block on a stand, and the first thing they do is take their grubby mitts and rub it right in the bore. Oh, look at it.
You're like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah. Does that belong?
Cross hatches are real nice. That's funny. Last one. You ready?
Yes.
Unlimited budget. Somebody's building it for you. You can do whatever you want. What is your dream car?
Ooh, unlimited budget. Well, my favorite car, I've always had a lot of G bodies. I like those cars, but I think 65 Chevelle, a black 65 Chevelle, that is just sexy to me. That car is just freaking awesome.
Yep. Big booty Judy, telling you. That's
set up with the 275 or something under the back, bead locks on the back. It would just be, that's it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, dude, that's all I got. I really, really appreciate you moving around your schedule to fit me in. Guys, everybody that's still listening, all 4 of you, I messaged him 15 minutes before we're supposed to do this. I'm like, hey, man, I got to push back. He's like, okay, cool. I'll do whatever. So I really appreciate that. And I'd love to have you as a recurring guest. Like, I don't know, we'll come up with a couple different things. End of the season, like I talked about with Derek, I'd love to kind of circle around that and kind of go over some stuff you maybe learned from this year and things that'll go into the racing season next year. So,
okay. Well, I thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm going to get more technical. I'm going to get more knowledgeable and then come back and learn more from you.
Any questions you have, I'll be happy to answer. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know.
That's awesome, man. That's what we appreciate about you.
Well, I appreciate
it. Tell everybody bye.
All right. Same for you.
Thanks.